Welcome back to the podcast. We have a home team episode right now, and it is an exciting episode. This is the 150th episode of the Jason Khalipa Podcast, and we've gone through some evolution over the years from AMRAP mentality, business of fitness, effort over everything, I think was first a little bit. And the Jason Khalipa Podcast has been running very consistently for 150 episodes. So I just want to express my absolute gratitude. I shared with Gabe one of the, it was a review that came in, and we always love getting the reviews on the podcast. So if you've been getting value out of these shows, leave us a rating, leave us a review. Definitely helps out the podcast, and it's really fun to get the insight from you guys on what you guys are getting from it. So welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to the show, gentlemen, and let's get this party started. Where are we going?
Keep no secrets, man. What was the review all about? What did the review say?
Well, the reason why this review was funny in particular was because Gabe and I have like this little ongoing joke where the first time I met Liz, she was having like a shoulder problem or something like that. And I said something, I don't know, he's like brought this up like at least 15 times. I don't know why.
I think I remember this.
Yeah, it's because like you were talking to Liz. Liz is like relatively new, and all I heard was, I'm not a doctor or anything. And then you were going to open up, and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. So since then, it's like every other time, not every time, I'm totally exaggerating, but like if I say anything, it's like, oh, you're not a doctor. But because Liz was having like a shoulder problem, like, look, I'm not a doctor, but here's my recommendation. Turns out she probably, she needed surgery or something, which obviously I couldn't help her with some deep tissue work. But the reason why I thought this was funny is because
were you trying to get her on a lacrosse ball?
Basically, which I do think
the doctor of lacrosse balls. Yeah, let's go.
Lacrosse ball foam roller, I think, does heal almost everything. I'm convinced more than ever that a guy getting into his glute with a foam roller and getting into your quad solves all problems. But anyways, it says this was from this was on Apple Podcast, just came through yesterday. These guys bring the heat and challenge you to grow. You can't listen to them without getting as fired up on fitness, being a husband and a father, and most recently, faith. These guys are real. They aren't posers. They know what they're doing. They're borderline doctors in the fitness and nutrition space, and they will help you along your journey to be the best father, husband, and athlete. And so I just thought it was funny because of that. Gabe and I always riffing on the doctor thing, so that's what he said. But thank you, the real Austin, for the comment. That's awesome. We really appreciate that. I mean, we've had a lot of really good ones, but that one just got me laughing because of the doctor piece.
That's a really solid review. Those are very kind words, and I think borderline doctors probably sums it up. Borderline doctors is pretty cool.
Yeah, but borderline doctors. So not a doctor yet, but fighting, working on it. Yeah, so we've had quite a few, but. Anyways,
I really want to hear this. I think we should kick off with this funny fitness story that MDVU had noted.
Oh my God, dude!
Stories that good stories always set the tones. Last time we had, old men drying their balls on the hand dryer. What do we got this time?
Well, it doesn't have to do with old men drying their balls with the hair dryer, so everybody's safe. But that still does go on. I've still been going to the LA fitness scene, and actually been training with a training partner a few times a week, which has been really cool over there. We get after it. Yeah, such a game changer, dude. Such a game changer. But anyway, this weekend, Sunday was a really beautiful day, and I was feeling really good. I don't know if everybody knows, but I ruptured my Achilles a couple of months back, and that's been a pretty gnarly injury to get over. Like walking distances has been tough. And this is the first time I was able to walk like a few miles and feel really good, but I still have to be pretty ginger on it, especially when I'm walking on like sand or if I'm walking on stones or things like that. It's good rehab for it, but like you just can't slip and let the ankle go whatever way it wants to go. You have to be careful. So I'm walking on the beach. I was doing some push-ups in the morning, had a cup of coffee with me. I'm in like this old raggy pair of jeans because I didn't really care about like what was going on. It was just a cool, chill morning. But the beach was packed because it's a beautiful day, and it was like the first kind of almost summer day. So I'm walking down the beach, and this group of like young Hispanic boys, teenagers, like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids are having a really good time. They're walking towards me, and I'm walking past them. I got my like black sunglasses on, and I just kind of give them a head nod or whatever. And one of the dudes in the crew looks at me and goes, "Damn, OG, you're fucking ripped." And I was like, first of all, first of all, don't call me OG yet because that makes me feel super old. But second of all, thank you so much because it made my day. Like I was laughing so hard about how he just like so cavalier said, damn, OG, you're ripped. And it was the first time that I've been called an OG by like a young kid in his teens. So that brought me to a whole new level of like pride.
Man, that
damn,
hits
OG.
That hits both ways.
Yeah, it was so funny, man. It like made my day completely, but I also had to laugh and be like, let's hold off on the OG for a little bit, please.
Dude, there's so many things in life that make me feel old. Music, this, that, especially with the kids. Because, dude, the kids is different, right? When I see like a picture of, let's just say, I don't know, MTV from 10 years ago, it doesn't look that much different than it does today. But, dude, when you look at kids from 10 years ago to today, it's like night and day. So it just makes you feel super aged. I think I told you guys this, or at least I told Gabe. I was at a baseball tournament a couple of days ago and a guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, man, I took a picture with you and my daughter in 2014 and blah, 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 blah. He goes, look at this picture. And it's like a little girl. He goes, yeah, she just got into college. I'm like, whoa. Damn.
Wow. Yeah.
It just makes you feel like, oh, man, here we are. So that's funny, though, MDV. That's great.
Yeah. I was laughing my ass off for the whole day. It was a super, like, I took it as a compliment ultimately. At first it was like, ooh, OG, I don't know how I feel about that. But like the truth that would come out of a teenager's mouth, I'm fine with the fact that these dudes thought I was super ripped. So like, I felt good about it.
That's the far more important detail of that story, that you were ripped.
Far more important.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit what they called you? What adjective they used outside of that? Ripped is the only thing I heard.
It's the only thing that matters.
Right.
It was so funny.
Okay.
Definitely wanted to get into training partners versus training solo, especially because, I had the privilege of, being in the Bay Area last weekend and got to get not just, a men's club workout in with the big group, but I thought that probably more indicative to this specific conversation was the session we did on Friday with, it was just 3 other guys that came in, me and Jay, and we did a flex session. Nice. And dude, we got after it. It was a lot of fun. And even for me, cause I kind of like, we were capturing content, but I was kind of like leading them through the workout. And like the running joke was, everyone was like, oh, we're just doing bodybuilding today, just bodybuilding. And I know that when Jay gets his boys together to do, some of the flex stuff, they're hitting it a little bit different than what my intention was to kind of introduce them to it. Cause I wanted to introduce them to it in a way of like, this is also how this type of training can be attacked. And this is also how it can feel. And it doesn't necessarily, it could. And I think there's a lot of value to just breaking up the routine of going super hard and some days just getting a pump. Like I think that that's super valuable. And if that's how you enjoy doing flex, great. But for the content and also just to kind of like, defend flex a little bit, I wanted to go in there and like really make these guys get after it. So it was a lot of fun, but even me that was leading the experience, I went so much harder and was using some weights that I probably wasn't, and was honestly like moving the weight better. And like, especially because I keep such track of these things. And it was like literally the day that I was up to in testing week 2 of the program, you just absolutely cannot hit a certain level alone. Doesn't matter the pre-workout, doesn't matter the music you have going, doesn't matter even how like invested you are in the program and how like dialed in you are, just being around other people. And again, like it wasn't even that I was around other guys that were like doing the same type of programming as me religiously and like are going heavier than me by any means. It was literally just the fact that I wasn't alone and you just like are able to tap into something completely different. So that was a really good example for me, who honestly, I train alone all the time, unless I'm traveling, get to see, either Jason or whenever I go to the East Coast, get a great session in with Dennis. But yeah, man, I think it is so necessary. I know it's not realistic for anyone, but it's so necessary. And MDV, I know you've been training with Mike G recently. So super cool that you're linking up with someone to just get after it, 'cause it's just a completely different experience, man. Completely different.
For sure.
It takes effort though, right? It takes effort. And I think it's absolutely mandatory. I absolutely, Gabe, I think that I don't know if your perspective shifted on this. I know that you train alone because it's very convenient. But I would encourage everybody at least a few days a week to try and get in with other people. It just keeps the energy right. It keeps the attention there. I think you get better results. And I think that it just holds you accountable. So, I don't know if anything, but that didn't shift for you. You still felt that before, but because I know you and I have talked about this, that you like training alone because you could like just whatever.
I mean, I like training alone because I have the flexibility of like just when I do it, how long I'm there, what I'm doing. Like right now, that's the most important thing for me because there's so many moving parts I can't commit to any one time. And, if I could call up someone and they could always be here within 5 minutes, because that's sometimes when I know when I'm going to train and go on, it would work. But it's more of a logistics thing. But again, like I was saying, it reminded me the value of having someone there. Because obviously it would be even more valuable if it was someone that like the sessions that I get with Dennis when I go on the East Coast are all time because, he's going to lead the session, significantly stronger than me, knows exactly what we're going to hit. Like, like I get so much out of that for that reason, but you even get stuff out of just training with other people that aren't necessarily stronger than you, more experienced than you, understand the programming better than you. Like it was a really good reminder of just having other guys in the room, like makes you push a little bit more, period.
Yeah, I have the luxury of being able to take class at my gym whenever I would like, pretty much. And I like to have a good balance of training by myself and then taking class a couple times a week. And it doesn't matter who's in the class. Like I could be training with, a bunch of 45-year-old soccer moms, and no one's competing with me. No one's perhaps at my level of fitness or commitment. And I'll still train significantly harder in that group than I would likely to do on my own, right? So, I like training by myself. It allows me to kind of like explore different movements, be creative with the types of exercises that I perform. It's like a meditative experience. You just sort of get in the zone and can just be alone in your head for an hour, whatever it is. For sure. I also think there's merit to trying to find ways to push yourself and kind of explore how hard you can push yourself when you don't have that external feedback from other people watching you or other people pushing you or whatever it is. I've always found that to be kind of like a fascinating process to see what you can actually put yourself through when no one's watching. So there's definitely benefit. I find benefits in having a balance of doing both. I don't think anyone should be stuck doing it one way or the other all the time. I think there's a lot of benefit in having a balance.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all pretty self-motivated people, and I know we all train solo quite a bit. And I think that when you have that aspect of your personality, like you can a lot of times go and get after a great workout, whether or not you're short on time or you like can't leave your house or you have a setup that you can just go to really quickly down the block or whatever, and you can get a great workout. And, that's really beneficial. And a lot of the stuff that Dennis just mentioned, like the meditative state and, breaking through barriers and just getting it done, like Gabe was talking about, when you just need to get it done, are really important to me for sure. But there is something to the camaraderie of even if it's not ratcheting up the intensity so much of like what you're doing, but the camaraderie of sharing that with somebody and being like, hey, what do you want to do next? Or like, what weight do you think we should do next? Or, if there's a 7th or 8th set and you're like, normally I would cut this at 5, but we're going to get after it for that 7th and 8th set. That stuff only really happens for me when I'm training with somebody else. I think that I can do all those things by myself, but like when somebody's there, it's just so much more of an enjoyable and shared experience. And then you get to bullshit with that person too a little bit and have fun with what you're doing, as opposed to it's just like, all right, I'm getting in, I'm getting these sets done, I'm kind of getting out. And value on both ends, but it's been a good time to train with somebody who's an accomplished fitness person, like Mike G is. So it's been cool.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're listening to this conversation, right, and you're feeling a little bit burnt out, maybe on your training, I would really encourage you to just take a deep breath, go text a friend and go train with them. And it's not going to be as convenient. It isn't. You're going to have to find times at work. Like, for example, this jiu-jitsu crew really wants to get together at 6 a.m. at the jiu-jitsu gym. It's messing up my flow because I like to train in the morning, fitness, and then jiu-jitsu later in the day. But they really want to get together at 6 a.m. and train. And so sometimes I need to give up like what is most convenient for me to create these connections and whatever. And it's like, like I think you need both. Like to Gabe's point, like dude, if he has the kids and he's got to get in, you got to get it in when you got to get it in. But if you could prioritize at least a few times a week to get the less convenient option, because it's never going to be the most convenient option. But dude, I think it'll keep you inspired and on the path more. So I think there's a give and a take there that I've had to realize in my own life. Like I obviously I can go to the gym, which I go to the gym all the time. And I have a lot of different access points to different training partners, which is very convenient for me. But if you don't have that, I would still try and prioritize at least once or twice a week and give up the convenience for the camaraderie and like to keep you inspired on the path, I guess is the way I'm looking at it. Like, I mean, for the long term, like I'm talking years and years and years. That's the way I'm looking at it, at least.
Yeah, it's a strong point. Jay, one of the most important things that you just said there, it's kind of resonating with me, hitting home. You know, we had a tragic loss a week ago in the CrossFit training community with, a gentleman took his own life. And I don't want to really get into the details. I wasn't very good friends with him. I knew of him. He was a tremendous trainer, but text your buddies, man. Just text your buddies and text them and ask them how they're doing. Text them to see if they want to do some push-ups. Text them to see if they want to work out. I think that kind of stuff is so, so important. And if you're somebody who's thinking like, hey, I wish somebody would reach out to me, for sure, reach out to one of your buddies because they're probably thinking the same thing. It's super, super important. I value that so much these days. And I had a buddy hit me up recently and be like, hey, let's get after this kind of like, workout routine for the next few days because I really need a jump. And I was like, let's do it. It's a really, really critical element, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the key things about the men's club here. And Gabe and I have been talking about it. I'm looking at it a little bit differently. I had a conversation with Gabe yesterday and we were talking about the men's club. Do you want to summarize? Do you remember exactly what you said, Gabe? You said there's two options. Do you remember that?
No, we talked about a lot of things.
What's that?
We talked about a lot of things.
I'm going to summarize it like this. Gabe goes, dude, look, bro, what are you trying to do with the men's club? He's like, you have two options. Option A, you're going to be like this beacon in your community to make a fitter community locally. You're going to impact 100 guys or whatever it is every single week. And you're going to be known as the guy in locally who's making an impact. Or we could showcase these guys and have them constantly using our programs and highlight how our programs are allowing these guys to come and just get they're super jacked, but they come weekly as an anchor. And that kind of hit home for me is like, we want to spread the word of training hard all during the week. And this becomes an anchor. So if you don't have the anchor of the men's club, find your own anchor on a weekly basis and then utilize our programs for the rest of the day. Because the rest of it is like where a lot of fitness occurs, but the anchor is what keeps you inspired, motivated, and keeps you on the path and fosters connection. I don't know if I butchered that, Gabe. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And the different way of looking at it?
Max was a good example of that, to where, and Max was one of the guys that listens to the podcast actually. So shout out Max and goes to the men's club, and I got to work out with him on Friday and do the flex session too. But he shared with you, and then you shared with me that like, the Saturday workout for him isn't necessarily like his workout. Like he's not going there to like, hey, this is going to be a session that like, really ticks off all the boxes and gets me towards my goals. Like he's going to move and get a good sweat in, but he's going to connect with these other guys and have coffee afterwards and good conversation. He's training really hard during the week. He showed up for the flex session on Friday, got after it. He was like really getting after it, putting a good effort in. But I think that that's an important distinction too, is that it's okay for some sessions not to necessarily be a brick laid for this very specific goal that you have, but just to be, in a setting specifically with other people, specifically with other guys. There's a lot of benefits to that, where you guys are doing something physical because also, and you've said this, a lot, Jay, it like brings the barriers down to then have some of the conversations that maybe you wouldn't, even if you were to go get coffee, or especially like, I don't disagree with you, MDV. You should definitely reach out and text, but it's so easy to text back like all good, right? Or whatever. Whereas like if you have the ability to meet up with someone and also do something physical, whether it's even going for a walk, sure, like, other things can come up that maybe wouldn't have, outside of like the superficial level. So I think that that's all that is the value of getting together and training. And it's super powerful, and it's fresh on my mind because I was able to be there this past weekend and see it for myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I wasn't just saying,
no, for sure.
Yeah. I think all of that kind of plays, but
to your point, like it's such an important, even just first step that I know a lot of people aren't doing. Like the text hopefully leads to linking up for a workout, to coffee, to having a trip. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm like over the moon excited and honestly super surprised that this group chat that I have with my old college swimming buddies, like, got their shit together. Cause they, we're always like making plans.
When is the
but, like,
triathlon again?
It's in June 8th. But the fact that like everyone got their shit together and we're literally doing this half Ironman relay, we're like splitting up 2 teams, swim, bike, run, and we're just doing it for fun, but we're literally all going to get together, spend a weekend together. Like, some people are married now, some people have kids now, but we're like finding a way to connect again. And I would never have guessed that we would have, actually been able to like plan something, because it's always tough, right? Like getting people to commit to like a trip and doing something. But the fact that we even signed up for that and have that going, like the text thread with those guys has been popping off, because we're like talking smack and like, just kind of planning for the trip, and all that has been so positive for me, especially because like, we're not in a bad way. We did this very intentionally, but we're pretty isolated here. We live, can't really see our neighbors. There's some weeks where like, we just work and stay on the property. So having that connection to old friends has been super, super positive for me this year. And it all starts with, texting and just reaching out and keeping that connection going. Otherwise it never would happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the plan. I got something big. We're going to do something big, like hard, multiple things that are hard for my 40th birthday. I'm still figuring it all out. I think we might walk from Los Gatos to Santa Cruz. It's going to be like 20 miles or whatever it is, but we'll see. Hey, Dennis, did you end up finding another strongman or not yet?
Not yet, dude. I'm finding like I'm still looking at some, it's got to like be convenient as far as location, date, days, scheduling. I'm kind of picky about the movements that they have in them. And that's been the main sticking point, is finding one that like doesn't have anything too out there that I won't be able to train and prepare for. But I might just have to bite the bullet and find one that, is just local, and that's it.
Dan, are you still feeling any like residual, like you feeling normal again training?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much back. Yeah. I mean, like I did my first like hard CrossFit style workout on Friday. It was like a barbell complex, this hideous EMOM that I came up with.
What was it? Share it.
So you did the first 5 minutes, every minute on the minute. You did 5 power cleans, 4 front squats, 3 push jerks, 2-minute break, increase the weight. Next 5 minutes, every rep goes down by 1. So 4, 3, 2. Yeah. 2-minute break, increase the weight. Next 5 minutes, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. What was the weights?
Whatever you wanted. You could just pick whatever you wanted. There was no like prescribed weight. So
I would have started at 315. What'd you start at?
I started at 135.
3 wheels.
And
oh my God.
I was like after 3 minutes, I was just destroyed, because I just haven't done something like that required that much like really like digging in effort, and my legs were just like mush. And case in point, I did it in a class. If I wasn't in a class, I would have thrown in the towel. No question. There was no question. And the last 2 EMOMs were completely miserable for me. But yeah, no, I'm pretty much back online now. Some of my capacity is not quite where it was, but as far as strength and just, ability to do all the movements, I'm pretty much back.
That's awesome.
I mean, starting with 5-4-3, 12 reps at 135 every minute on the minute.
It was rough.
That's a lot.
It escalated very quickly. Like the first minute, it was like, all right. And then the second minute, you were like, oh shit. Yeah. And then, dude. I was just buried after that.
I was just about to say that the transfer from I got this is okay, to this is miserable probably happened in the first like 2 or 3 minutes of that workout.
It was so quick.
Right? It's always a light switch. It's always a light switch. It doesn't
in a lot of death buys, like remember doing death buys where it's like death by pull up or death by burpee. You have this like longer kind of like build up to the moment, and then there's the light switch. Like everybody in death by burpee for the first like 7 or 8 minutes is like, oh yeah, this is great. Like we can do whatever. This is fun. And then all of a sudden everybody shuts up. Mm-hmm. It's like no longer fun anymore. It's around like minute 12 for most people.
Right.
Dude, I got to go back into like, I didn't really keep any logbooks, but man, we did some gnarly EMOMs back at NorCal CrossFit with the, like we would do some just stupid EMOMs looking back on it. Like I remember most times we would do filthy 50 twice. I remember there was a time that I was convinced that we did Fight Gone Bad every day to warm up. I'll never forget that. I just was like, dude, we got to get in volume. And we just did Fight Gone Bad, like 400 reps just to warm up. And I'm like, all right, everybody feeling good? Okay, cool. And then we were, because it's just 3 rounds. It took 15 minutes. But
There's a classic YouTube video of you.
Which one? I mean,
Doing which one?
Where you're like, everyone's getting together. I think it's at NorCal CrossFit, and you're writing the workout up for the day, and you're like, all right, so we'll warm up, fight gone bad, just like 300 reps, or like 350 reps, not crazy, just a warm up, and that was the warm up for 350 rep fight gone bad.
Yeah, dude, we had these. I'll never forget this. This group came in from Australia, and they were really they came in for a day of training with us, and it happened to be a day like Neil Maddox and other people were with us, and they wanted to participate in the entire day of training, and they were really adamant on it. And I remember sitting down with them, I was like, look, dude, this is what we do all day, every day. You should not be doing this with us. You're coming from, another country. This is way outside your scope. Please don't do this. They're like, no, we could absolutely do it. And I just remember, dude, halfway through the second session, they were just just out. It was just too much, So that was a lot of volume back then. In hindsight, maybe we could have done better if we actually didn't do as much volume, but who knows?
The year that the Jackie workout showed up in regionals,
I did it 22 times.
Dude, Jason, I probably did it about 15 or 17 times before the event. And I was like, I cannot do this workout again, ever. It was so, and one of my favorite workouts of all time, because I think it leveled the playing field between the big guy and the small guy a little bit. I really like that aspect of that workout. And, it was just every single day, show up, just be a specialist at Jackie. Cause I competed on the team at that time. I wasn't doing the individual stuff. Dude, man, that was a fun time.
We would do Jackie. We would do the row and the thrusters every day when it was announced. Every single day, we started it off with that. And we wouldn't do the pull-ups because I knew you can get 30 pull-ups in a row, and I didn't want to get sore from it. So I'd be all right, because the cycling time on an empty barbell, you got to really learn how to do that effectively. And that was. Oh man, that was a good one.
So for anybody listening, Jackie's a 4-time workout, 1,000 meter row. After the 1,000 meter row, you're immediately off to a 50 repetition empty barbell thruster into 30 pull-ups. Most of the time, those would be kipping if you're competing. And the best in the world are doing that workout unbroken, and you're really just seeing how much you want to die on the rower. It comes down to how fast can you row in that workout at one point.
And cycle the barbell, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're cycling the barbell 50 reps unbroken at your top speed, you're really only making up time on your splits on the rower, right?
That's a nasty time domain too.
That's so bad. 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes.
Gross.
So 5:03.
What were you doing? Yeah, 5:00. Jason was good, fucking cruising in that workout.
That was a good one.
Specific to the CrossFit athlete now. Because I know that the difference now is you don't get the regional workouts as far in advance, because you used to get it really far in advance, especially if you were one of the later regionals. You could potentially have an entire month knowing the tests and practice them like you. Now, obviously, that isn't even an option because you find them out pretty late per event. But is there, if you were to go back knowing what you know now about training, is that still the way to excel at that test? Jackie's coming up in a month from now. Is it just to do Jackie over and over?
Yes. I mean, from my perspective, I was being relied on as a team member to win that workout in the field. I was the best person on the team for that workout, and that's the only thing I was focusing on. So for sure, doing that workout over and over and over again, understanding my own limits of capacity, especially on the rower, how far could I get the rower towards 140 or 138, and I'm trying to row 1,000 in that workout. That was the only thing I cared about. But for an athlete like Jay, maybe it's different if he had all these different events. You
were given 6 events and you had a month to prepare. And so what I would do is I'd look at the events and say, okay, which ones require a specific level of game planning? And then we would start breaking those down. And which ones can I do without getting overly sore? So if it was something that was obnoxious, we wouldn't do that every day because you would just be smoked. But if it was something like Jackie or even Diane, remember the first time I did Diane, which is deadlifts and handstand pushups, it took me whatever it was, 4 minutes. By the time I got to the games, I had shaved off 50% of my time because I would go into the gym and just practice transitions, So the answer is, I think when it came to the skill of competing in CrossFit, it's a skill just like anything. and you had to know exactly what was your rep scheme. When do I need to break it up? How many steps do I take between this and this? Where am I breathing at? And so we would look at it, we would analyze it, we'd break it down by the second. And, it paid off. I mean, I won my regional every year. So it paid off big time because we prepared for it. And I think nowadays, though, the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, they're happening very soon. When this release probably just happened. And I think you get the workouts on like whatever, and you have like 3 days to complete them. And you have to have 2 judges. So it's causing a little bit of a friction point right now in the community, which is something.
It's a huge pain in the ass.
It's a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah, because we have like an age group qualifier, Mike, at our gym that has to do them. And even for the age groups, he's in the 45 to 49. We have to have a head judge on the floor in the video. And then we also have to have another judge judging the workout.
Yep.
And
they have to be at a sanctioned gym with both they both have to be level 1s, and they both have to go through the coaching certification. It's a lot.
The judges course and the advanced judges course. But it's, whatever. If it was one workout, that's not a huge deal. But they have to complete whatever it is, 4 or 5 workouts over the course of 3-4 days. And we all have to coordinate our schedules, when the gym is going to be available, when we're all going to be available to be there. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I just looked up, it was a 2013 Northeast Regional, and I can't find my specific time on this workout, but we won the event with a combined time of 12:23
on the
Jackie, because it was 2 athletes that did Jackie back to back. 12:23. CrossFit King of Island Park came in second. Those OGs at 12:27. We beat them by 4 seconds. And in Team Dynamics at 12:33. Oh my God. Remember those guys?
Dynamics. Yeah.
What a Northeast throwback.
Classic.
With those names, dude. Oh my goodness.
What year was that? You said 13?
2013.
Yeah. 2013, 2014. Those were some solid years of the games. And then,
oh God, man,
we're still staying up to date. We will, we don't talk about CrossFit that much on the podcast, but with you guys, we talk about it more than when Gabe and I are talking about it, but the sales stuff is going to be very interesting. So we will keep you apprised of all information when it comes up, because that's going to change some things for sure.
Those were the golden years for sure.
Oh yeah. Back then.
2013, 2014. That was the pinnacle.
Hey, Dennis, I did curls this morning at 95 pounds.
Yeah.
I got 15, but I didn't want to make you feel bad. So I said I did 5. I just was letting you know.
Did you really get 15?
No, I didn't get 15. I got 5.
5?
I got 5 good ones though. Like they were good. I mean, they were like butt up against the wall or like against the rig, like solid. But
let me ask you this. Did you attempt a 6th, or did you just give up after 5?
No, he did. Yeah. He attempted.
Yeah. And failed it?
Yeah.
Wow. Come on. This can't be.
I think it's because, dude, I got in my head, like my butt kind of came off. I was like, dude, I don't want to cheat Dennis. I don't want to beat him. I don't want to be a cheating winner. I want to be so I kept my back up against the wall, man. It was hard.
Yeah, it was
I don't know how you got
hard.
9, bro. Seriously, you have like man strength for sure.
Yeah. When you're 46, you'll be able to do 9.
I hope so, dude.
Yeah.
I really do. I
like
hope so.
Hands and wrists get strong.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. They get stronger. It's the only part of your body that gets stronger.
That's the strongman stuff, man. That strongman stuff is sneaky.
Yeah, that helps.
I had a landlord. I had a slum landlord in college. His name was William Wallace. Literally, his name was William Wallace.
Awesome.
And he was 85 years old. Like, this was the most crotchety old man who owned like 3 of these really rundown houses in Albany, New York. And he was the worst landlord ever. But we had to call him one day because the sink in the bathroom was just like shooting water out, and we couldn't, like, we had the tool and we were trying to crank it. And like, we were like, hey, William, should we call the plumber or what? He's like, I'll come by and I'll figure it out. So he comes by, and I swear to God, he took his hand and just turned the thing with his hand. And we were all sitting there like, oh my God, this guy's got the most old man strength I've ever seen in my life. He fixed it with his hand as opposed to like we had the leverage with the tool.
I do think there's something to that. Last night I was at an event because my one of my family members finished chemotherapy, which is a really big deal. and this gentleman comes by. Actually, he works with Waymo, which is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Waymo, but it's super popular here in the Bay Area, and it's going to take over. They're the driverless cars. Anyways, this guy looks at me, he's like, hey man, he's like, your neck's pretty large and your shoulders, like you look pretty fit. I was like, yeah. And he goes, how long do you think it would take me to have the same physique as you? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm looking at him, and he's I don't know, in his 40s or whatever, but he had never trained in his life ever. And so I was like, dude, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I was like, you're going to see some results very quickly in 6 months or less because you have never lifted a weight before. So imagine if you're a guy listening to the podcast, or you get shared the podcast from someone right now, and your buddy is in his 30s, 40s, or 50s and has never touched weights. I think they're about to unlock some man strength, dude. Think about that. It's going to be great for them. That's what I told him.
Did you tell him how long it would take to look like you?
I told him that you have to train for quite a while, and that it compounds, but that I didn't really say it looked like me. I just said you would see visible results in a few months that would make you feel really, really good about yourself. Because if you haven't touched a weight, and he was like, you could tell, like, genetically he could probably put it on. So that's what I told him.
Man, those newbie gains.
That's what I'm saying. The newbie gains are great. Like Diego, I was talking to you about, Gabe. Diego got on the path of what we were doing for the last 2 years, and he was like thrown off because he's not seeing all of his numbers go in he was used to seeing straight up results, and now it's like more plateaued a little bit for him.
Yeah. And that's like a pivotal point for a lot of people, because that's where people kind of fizzle out. They lose that motivation because things aren't moving, either fizzled out or injured, right? Because you can go one of two routes. You're like, hey, I'm not progressing enough. Do more, go harder, do more, go harder, potentially get injured. Or it's like, I'm not progressing anymore. Life gets a little bit busy. You also don't have that motivation of like, hey, everything's moving in the right direction. And then you fizzle out. It's a very pivotal time for people to realize that you just got to stay on the path. It's going to take a lot longer, but you have to stay on. You just have to stay consistent, and over time you'll still see an improvement, but you're never going to see it at the rate that you did in the beginning, which again is easier said than done.
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. Nothing will beat, training hard beats out just about everything, but one thing it probably doesn't beat out is when you have fantastic genetics and then just doing some work. When you see those people who have amazing genetics and they're like, I don't really do that much. It's just like, damn, that kind of build and that kind of physique is like the life lottery for fitness. Like that's a great combination.
Yeah. I would say genetically, I would say that genetically I am predispositioned to put on muscle more than most people. And I recognize that. I recognize that if that's a benefit that I have, and
sure.
I'm very grateful for that, because I know other people probably work just as hard or maybe even harder and have a tougher time putting on muscle.
On the flip side of that, the one thing I would add is that, at least and I can just speak for me personally, I told myself that I was a hard gainer and an endurance guy for a long time, and that was the reason that I wasn't able to put on any significant amount of muscle. And when I literally stopped telling myself that and just realized that putting muscle is hard, it's hard for everyone, and it's just going to take a very dedicated approach to training and a very dedicated way to periodize how I do my nutrition, I immediately saw very significant results in what in the grand scheme of things is a pretty small time frame, like a year and a half. In a year and a half of very dedicated, this is what I want, my body changed, significantly enough. And I think that is also an important thing for people to realize, is that yes, I'm not that genetically gifted person that is just going to look at a weight and put on muscle. I'm not. Having said that, you just do the things that are proven to work, and you do it for long enough, year and a half, and you'll be pretty happy with how much progress you make. So I think that's important too.
Yeah. Well, the old adage is what, genetics loads the gun, but your decisions pull the trigger. And I think that you can certainly outwork your genetic predispositions. It might be harder for some people, right? It might be a little bit more difficult. It might take more time, more dedication. But it also is inarguable that there are some people out there that are just genetically gifted. They don't do as much work. They don't do as much whatever activity, or like you see it a lot of times in elite athletics. It's like this person was built this way. They were built to do this thing that they do. And that's a pretty unique set of circumstances. But I agree with you, Gabe. Like you can outwork your genetics with enough dedication for sure.
Yeah, Chris Hinshaw would talk about that and his lung capacity and his VO2 max, like the amount of oxygen that his lungs could take up was significantly greater than like the average person. He would talk about something genetically was built in him that he had that capacity more so than the next guy, which I found to be always interesting. Yeah.
Well, VO2 max is a great example of that, right? I mean, that's largely determined. Your upper ceiling is largely determined genetically in VO2 max. You can train it and increase it, but everyone kind of has a ceiling that they're blessed with or not blessed with, to develop that to a certain capacity. And you're either born with it or you're not.
Yeah. And he would recognize that, right?
The best way I ever heard it articulated was that we all have a genetic ceiling for everything. Body composition, VO2 max, strength, muscle, whatever. But so many people are so predisposed or preoccupied by where that genetic ceiling is for them that they're not even getting anywhere near their own ceiling.
Not close to the potential.
Right? That's the goal. Like if your ceiling's here, get up to there and then maybe complain that like, I got to my, the top of my potential and I'm tapped out here. But people spend so much time just, my ceiling's so low, but you're nowhere near it. Like get near it and then maybe you can complain a little bit, Yeah.
I watched a documentary on deep sea free divers at one point.
Oh, gosh. Dude.
People with no apparatus diving to insane depths. And one of the things that they mentioned in this was that they don't have any external breathing devices. It's just their human lung capacity. One of the things they mentioned in this show or documentary is the fact that none of these people were special before starting to practice this, that they all developed this capacity over time and training and time under tension. And like the amount of time that they spend underwater is like, it's like a 2 or 3 minute range. I think I might even be undershooting that, which is crazy to think about. But, that was something that stood out for me. I was like, damn, like you can train your body to do just about anything if you really wanted it to.
Man, those people are crazy, dude.
Crazy.
Like they have like that line and then they pass out when they're like 50 feet from the top and bro, thank you.
No,
this is kind of off topic, but there's a movie coming out called Last Breath
Oh, it came out. It's so good.
Is that the one where they document,
the lost breathing tube of the, deep sea, he's like working on a rig underwater. Anyway, Gabe, it came out already?
Yeah, it came out already. It's a great movie. Spoiler alert. It's based on true events, but it documents this like story that no one can still understand how this deep sea diver, they go down there and they like fix, underwater pipes in the North Sea. But because of a storm and stuff, he got cut off from his oxygen, but ended up surviving completely, no brain damage, no lasting effects, nothing, being without oxygen for 30 minutes. And
what?
Yeah. And like
like an insane depth of water.
Wait, but he had passed out?
Yeah. He was like passed out without oxygen. They eventually found him. And the whole story is that they don't give up on him and go and recover the body, but he ended up being fine. And scientists have since then like speculated that it was like the unique depth and cold water that actually like slowed everything down to the point where he was able to survive and not have any brain damage being away for that long, because it's like generally accepted that the brain can survive without any like permanent damage without oxygen for like 5-7 minutes, like tops. But that's in like normal atmosphere conditions and like normal temperature. Because he was so deep underwater and in such cold, it like extended that to a level that's like never been seen again. And obviously you can't experiment on this stuff, but yeah, man. And the craziest thing about it, again, spoiler, the craziest thing about it is they document this whole story. It's insane. It's like, tip of your seat. Like, is he going to make it? Is he not? Then he finally makes it. The ending is like super satisfying in that respect. They went right back down and finished the job like 3 weeks later.
The guy did?
Yeah. They went and finished the job. Insane. Can you imagine like going through that experience and you just like the end note, like at the end during the end credits was like 3 weeks later they went down and like finished the welding job or whatever.
He probably wanted to like kind of, I imagine if that's what he does for work, he probably
Yeah,
wanted to
I guess you have to jump back
break
on the
seal,
horse,
like
but
get back on the
holy
horse. Otherwise he never would do it.
Mm-hmm.
I like read that note and like my heart rate went up. I was like, oh, geez, imagine.
It
that.
is called Last Breath, and it came out in 2025. It's got an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Fantastic
Is that
movie.
good?
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Awesome in it. Yeah.
You know,
That's a good rating.
when I went scuba diving with Caden, man, I was in like the nicest water, not that deep, and I was still so uncomfortable and scared. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be hundreds of feet down and like, yeah, it's just mind-boggling. Ooh,
You guys ever have Dan Bailey on the podcast and him talk about the experience when he was in Hawaii with?
We've had Dan on. We have not talked about that experience with Aaron. I know about it.
Yeah,
we should
well,
probably have him on because he almost got that wasn't good.
Let's leave that for Dan to tell that story, but that was that's a pretty gnarly experience.
The Chris Hinshaw's story from Hawaii. Like, dude, I started crying on that podcast.
Yeah,
What happened there?
He was in some
He told
tough
that on
surf.
the podcast, dude.
Yeah, and Chris is a really proficient swimmer.
Yeah.
And he was in Hawaii and he saw a girl in distress, and essentially the waves and the surf changed really quickly, and the lifeguards, everybody knew it was going to change. And so there was a
Instantaneous,
girl
man.
that was out there who got stuck behind the break, and he was just watching, and like he had his sons there too and some other family members who are really good swimmers. And long story short, he saw this girl, and so he swims out to her to help her. And the girl grabs on him and is like, "Hey, I'm a good swimmer." What is she? I think
she said,
quote, "I'm a good swimmer. Don't let me die." And
Wow.
I remember he said to himself in his head, like, "Okay, I got something to work with here. This girl's saying that she's a good swimmer. She has that confidence. I need to just hold her up, basically."
He had no flotation device?
Nothing.
No.
I mean, he was just out there like chilling.
Yeah, dude.
And
that's,
dude, so he-
that's a super gnarly scenario.
dude, and he got her out, and he had a collapsed lung because of how much water he took in from the
He ended up
effort.
in the hospital for like what, 4 days or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So he saved her and then ended up in the hospital for 4 days. But he said like the girl's dad was like, you know, I mean, how would you? I mean, it was just the whole if you go back,
Hearing him tell the story too is just like,
yeah. Look up Chris Hinshaw. If you're listening to the podcast now, look up the Chris Hinshaw podcast we did with him, and it was just really, really profound what he had to share.
Yeah, I was an ocean lifeguard for 8 summers on Long Island, and I had some pretty hectic rescues over that time. But one of the things that they always advised us to do, and I had to do this a couple of times, was that when you get to the person who you're saving, especially in really bad water, you cannot let them grab you. Because if they grab you and they won't let go, and you're going down with them. So you always took your flotation device or your rescue tube and you like shoved it to them and stayed away from them while they grabbed that, and then you grabbed them, because it would just get so hectic in that water, and they panic. So they're so freakishly strong at that point because they're trying to survive.
Yeah. I felt the same way when I was scuba diving with this instructor. We're like 20 feet down. And I'm starting to like freak out a little bit. I'm looking at this guy. I'm like thinking like, I'm not okay. I'm like giving him all these signs. Like, I'm not okay. I'm like freaking out. And the guy just looks at me. He's like, "You're okay." Like in the water. I'm like, "No, bro. Like, I'm not okay." And he's just like, we had like this internal battle for like 5 minutes.
they probably did
It's
a
hard
whole,
to stay
they probably
calm,
did-
man.
They probably did a whole brief on the boat about like, no matter what, just stay calm. Jason gets in the water. He's like,
Immediately
No,
freaking
I'm
out.
out. No, I'm out. I'm out. They definitely talked about me later that day. Like, "Hey, that big guy, he
yeah,
was
the
a
big
little-
guy. It's always the big guy.
He got 20 feet under and he was tripping.
I'd be with you, dude. I don't do the ocean. I don't
Dude,
do water.
It
Ocean's
just
scary,
took me a
man.
while.
Yeah.
It just, what was really awkward about scuba, which I'd never done it, was, and then we did a 3-day cert. So by the end of it, it was much more comfortable. Is that you're not used to breathing underwater, man. It's so foreign. And so when you're breathing underwater, you got to like, meanwhile, Caden's like a fish because he doesn't have all these preconceived things that I'm going through in my head.
Kids are
And,
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the experience.
The that Endure book that I've talked about here is just fresh in my mind, and they have a whole chapter on, because the second half of the book goes through like oxygen, heat, hydration, like all the things that limit your endurance, and it kind of goes into the science of like how physiological are really these limits and how psychological they are. And the air thing, MDB, to your point about the deep sea divers, it talks about them at length. And just thinking about this gives me the heebie-jeebies. But when these deep sea divers go down, if everyone's here has done a max breath hold, you know that like around a minute or like the first thing you hear is you start feeling that like, you know, that panic, that discomfort. You almost start like, you know, like convulsing a little bit. That is a purely psychological limit. Purely. So these people, they go through that and you have to get over that hump. And when you get over that hump, it actually like, you kind of go into a state of I mean, I would never experience it, so I wouldn't even know what to explain it, but you get past that hurdle.
Yeah.
And like, you just think about that, like the mental, and you know, everything comes with practice and everything, but you think about like being able to mentally like tell your body that you're okay through something we've all experienced, which like, it literally feels like if I don't have a breath now, like I'm going to die or I'm going to pass out. But apparently that's like purely psychological. You just have to get through that because it's your body saying that like you're accumulating too much carbon dioxide, but you're fine. Like you still have plenty of oxygen for a while over that first bump. Now after that, it's to an extent, but that first like little bit of resistance is purely just your body's trying to like not allow you to get into a more dangerous situation, but there isn't really a physical aspect of that that's like limiting at all, which is fascinating and also kind of terrifying.
For sure. You're not, I mean, fine is like a interesting word there because, you know, you're still in a pretty gnarly circumstance. You're still in a really bad circumstance if you're stuck underwater and you reach that state of calm. I've experienced that before on a really big day where I got caught in the middle between the shore and where the waves were breaking on like a hurricane style day on Long Island. And it was 7 or 8 wave sets in a row. And with whitewater, you can't float in whitewater. So you get pulled under. You can't breathe in whitewater either. It's this really bad scenario to be in. And you panic for a second, but then you find this calm. And in that calm, the decisions that you make are really important, like really, really important. Like, okay, I'm just going to let myself go back in. I'm not swimming against this. I'm going to wait until I can see the next like set coming. And even if it's like a couple of seconds between the sets, that's when you take your breath. And it's super important that you don't panic.
Yeah,
in those
I guess
moments.
to clarify what I meant by
crazy.
you're fine is assuming you're just trying to assuming you're just trying to do like an extended
if
breath
you're in
hold,
like a
you're
pool, just trying to do a breath hold is what
Yeah.
you're talking about, right? Yeah. Yeah.
In the bathtub.
Yeah, I got what you were saying, Dave.
Yeah,
Like,
in the back, like
hey,
like head down, you're just trying to work on this thing, not like, you know, in white water trying to save someone from drowning.
Pinching your nose.
yeah, please don't do that. We're not encouraging any of that.
Oh, don't do that. Yeah.
Did we have a challenge from last week?
We didn't because you were
No
delinquent
challenge.
on the bicep curls, but you're setting the one for next week.
Okay, so I've been doing this lately.
Doesn't involve water, does it?
Water in a sandbag. Dennis, do you have a C2 Echo bike? I mean, a C2
Biker.
Erg?
Yes.
biker?
Yeah.
Do you have one,
I
Gabe?
don't. No.
I do.
I know you do.
I can do the assault bike equivalent. I can do an equivalent on the assault bike or whatever.
It's not the same.
No, it's not.
I love
the
that
same. It's very
C2 bike,
different.
man.
I know. I would trade in the assault bike for a C2, at least for more like aerobic efforts, because that's really what I use it for.
The footprint is so small. You can move it around even a small apartment and you can ride it while watching something or listening to something and not be drowned out by the sound of the fan. It's a
the
great,
best.
great tool.
It's the
Great
best
tool.
for leg stamina, for everything. Okay, so I'm going to set the challenge, and Gabe, we'll see what we can do with you. But 10 minutes, max cals on the C2 biker, and the goal is, or max meters, excuse me. The goal is you have to get like
10.
You have to get at least 5,000. Like 5,000 is like low key. That's holding 1,000 meters per every 2 minutes is like the standard. Typically, I'll do that for 20 minutes. But your goal is to get max meters in 10 minutes on a C2 bike. My expectation is to see somewhere in the range of like close to 5,700. I think we'll get some. Maybe Dennis will get close to 6. We'll see.
Getting 5,001.
Yeah, 5,001. I mean, you have to get 5,000
No,
minimum.
So Jay, when I was at your house,
5,000 is not that bad.
when I was at your house, I did an hour on the C2 bike, zone 2, and I got in the middle at least over 5,000 for 10 minutes. So you should get more than 5,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like I'm setting the bar low, because we want to, see some numbers. So
Meters, not calories, right?
Meters. I'm sorry. Yeah. Meters on the C2 bike. And, look, we don't get paid by C2. I think their bike is great. I mean, I think that
it's a great
Rogue Echo bike has a lot of value. The Assault bike has a lot of value, but the C2 bike, especially for warm-ups and stuff, it's just awesome. It's great. Yep. They came out with this new like strength training thing. I haven't tried that yet.
Have you tried it?
I've heard things about it. My buddy Max tested it. It's a strength erg.
Yeah, it looks
it's strength erg. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to talk anything on it until I try it, because maybe it'll be great. But
what C2 challenge I haven't been able to eclipse yet, and I'm gunning for it, is 30 minutes to get 600 calories on the bike, and I can get into the deep fives, but getting to 600 has like eluded me so far, because you have to really hurt to get there. Well, but the 10-minute one's going to be fun. 10-minute one's going to be fun.
Yeah, I had a buddy come over and he got like 4,800, and he came over again. I was like 5 days later, I'm like, bro, come on, we got to get 5,000, and he got 5,000. It's just, you just got to build that confidence up. That's it. It's just earned. So that's the challenge of the week for the home team.
All right,
remember that.
I like it.
All right, good.
Hate it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with you, Gabe. We'll figure it out. But guys, look, we have just released the updated Train Hard app. It is a major solution to a big problem, which is getting guys connected, getting workout programs that are effective, and tracking progress. And so if you're out there and you're like, dude, I like what these guys have to say, show me the path. I'm telling you, the path is join the newsletter, listen to the podcast, and most importantly, be on the Train Hard app. It is a solution to your problem if you want to get in better shape to be able to train, protect, and provide. We're doing it better than anybody else, period. And that's it. That's all I got. So make sure you check out the podcast show notes for a link to that. Because if you're out there and you want to train, protect, provide, just like we all do, we have a great solution for you. Gentlemen, any closing remarks? Are we good on that?
Well, wrap it up. Let's get after it.
With that said, everybody listening, hope you and your family are doing great. Have a kick-ass week. We appreciate you guys so much for joining us along this journey to help as many people, as many men, as many people train, protect, and provide. It's something that we're very passionate about. Go join the app. Later.